Welcome back to Sherry's Metaphysical Corner. Today I'd like to talk to you about another modality that I am about to embark on in the healing arts. As you know, that this program is all about healing modalities. The next one is the emotion code, and the founder of this is Dr. Bradley Nelson. This was going to be also another two-part series, like the topic we did last month and we discussed. I'm fascinated and encouraged with this latest healing modality I'm now getting involved with. There are many similarities to the biofield tuning I use with tuning forks, kinesiology, and that's muscle testing. Okay, so let's get started. In this modality, we work with two key elements: trapped emotions and the subconscious mind. So the first trapped emotion is an unprocessed emotion from a past negative or challenging event. It's like a little ball of static energy lodged somewhere in the body and disturbs the surrounding tissue and organs. This stuck energy actually influences the way we think, so our actions, thoughts, and words are affected. The subconscious mind knows everything about the self, everything we've done, and acts much like a storehouse for everything about us, like a supercomputer. And to find out which emotion it is, we connect with the subconscious mind and communicate. And I'm going to tell you right now, we only use 1/10 of our mind. So at that, let's just say, our job as practitioners is to find the underlying trapped emotion that's triggering the negative thinking or negative actions, etc. It's like a scent you smell that brings you back to a memory of maybe a favorite aunt's kitchen or a trip you took to a retreat. All of this information is stored and is what we connect with as practitioners. So it's pretty much tapping in, so to speak, and we find the underlying issues. So there are 7 keys to the emotion code process. And in this, there's specific distinctions used by Dr. Bradley Nelson to help people more fully understand this. So I'm going to leave you a chart so that you can follow along, and it shows you where we get all this information when we're working on a person. So the first one is key 1. The emotion code. So the chart, there are 2 columns with 6 rows and revealing 60 trapped emotions on the chart, and is divided up into 5 boxes, or boxes of 5. And we know the subconscious mind knows which one of these is causing pain or money blocks or relationship blocks, digestive issues, etc. So it's amazing. Key 2, muscle testing. So communicating with the subconscious. It's also called kinesiology and is also a form of biofeedback. There are a lot of methods of how to use muscle testing. So key 3, proxy. There's an energetic strand that connects us, and some people may feel that connection that takes place. And proxy is just another word for remote session. The severity, key 4, is the severity. It gives the practitioner a gauge of how severe on a scale from, let's say, 1 to 10. 1 being great health, and 10 being the most severe. Key 5, permission. Always have to have this. So either written or verbal permission is required before we do any energetic work. And if we're working on children, permission can come from either the parent or the guardian that is taking care of the child. That is required. Key number 6 is magnets. We work with magnets. So we use magnets in this process, and we help to get rid of the issue. Magnets are pure energy and help to amplify our intention to clear out that trapped emotion. We do this by swiping them over the crown, which is the governing meridian, okay? I'll explain more about that in a minute. So as we remove trapped emotion, we as practitioners need fuel, and that fuel is water, believe it or not. We need to stay hydrated. We can also acquire inherited emotions. These can come from parents, grandparents, and even further back than that, many generations back. And I'm going to give you a quick description. I had some work done on myself with this work by a practitioner, and he's wonderful. And he went back twice. And this is a very unusual thing to have inherited emotions stuck in your field from 2 different times. He actually had to go back the first time 10 generations, the second time he went back 17 generations. So both of them, he went back to the 1500s for one that was stuck, another one was the 1700s. I was utterly amazed by what he found. Had to do with somebody that was in the war. It was on the men's side, the male side. And I talk about the yin and the yang. You've heard me talk about that before, the male-female energy. It was on the male side, my dad's side of the family. It was someone that was in war. And the grief that he endured was so intense for him that it got passed down through the generations. So that's how many years back it went. So I thought you'd find that interesting. So many generations back can be found. So these are caused by traumatic events, as I just specified, or occurrences that an ancestor went through, and they were carrying this stuck energy vibration. So each time they conceived a child in that stuck energy, that energy was passed on to the next generation. So a limiting belief is a subconscious negative statement we make to ourselves about ourselves. That's perceived as the truth. Like not being worthy, too hard, it's impossible, I can't do that. Things like that. You can do it. You have to change your thinking. It can also be a positive statement as well. So one can test negative and not be in vibrational harmony with something positive. So with the emotion code, we can work with both positive and the negative belief system. So we want to remove the trapped emotions that would make the negative statements false and the positive statements true. And many of these limiting beliefs are created at a young age, before the age of 6, believe it or not. So example, a failed attempt at your first lemonade stand when you were just a little kid, or an art show that you were involved in school and you didn't make the cut, you didn't qualify. Those are all things that are very traumatic at a very young age. We're actually in a different rhythm, a different brainwave pattern before the age of 6. Again, we take in everything going on around us. Parents' habits, grandparents' habits, so whatever and whoever was around us. But it's not limited to just the youth. Limiting beliefs can also be created anytime in life. Maybe a loss of a job, a challenging boss, a promotion, a divorce. We can also clear blocks with regard to money. Very, very strong, we can do that. So, key to self-testing, this is interesting, is to sense the change taking place in the body. So for example, if working on a person and they make a true statement, there's a change that occurs in them. In their arm, if you're using kinesiology with the arm will be strong. If, for example, one makes a false statement, there's also a change that takes place in the body, and that change will manifest weaker. And then this work, instead of using the arm with, like in kinesiology, we use the fingers, okay? So we can either use this, the rings, or we can use the fingers, and if the finger, and we cross the other fingers over, and if we find that it's a true statement, it's the same as the arm, or strong. No, strong is yes. So we can use the fingers. So it's a little bit different, but the process is the same. So in proxy work, or another term for that is remote distance work, we experience change as well. So when testing someone, if their body becomes weak in certain areas, we as practitioners will pick up on it and also become weak in that location. I will actually feel what the individual feels. We sense that subtle change in one's body. This is not something that's forced. Oftentimes we work too hard at it. The beauty of this work is its simplicity of ease and not forced. We're acting upon this with faith and gratitude, which brings me to love and hate. Those are very strong and powerful words. These hold vibrations, as I've mentioned in my work with the tuning forks. Everything holds a vibration, love being the strongest and hate being the weakest. So in our practice, it does take faith and trust. And trust. Learn to trust. You can tap in. The highest beauty of the practitioner in any healing modality is to act as a go-between for that higher power or God or whatever you believe that higher power to be, whatever you want to call it. It's something larger than ourselves. So as a practitioner, we used focused intention. I say that word a lot, focused intention. I do the same thing with the tuning forks. Focused intention of love with a person. That's how you move energy. Sometimes we get stuck on the mechanics of this, and we forget how simple it works. Everything created has its own intelligence on some level. Everything. Doesn't matter what it is. So questions you can ask the body, let's say in the body code. Is there an underlying reason for its particular uneasiness or discontent? That's one question. Another is, are you okay with getting well if you find that a person isn't getting well? Seriously, some people get into a zone for a variety of reasons. Some receive attention through sympathy, and they like that, so they stay there. Others get stuck in fear of being more and then failing, and they get stuck in that, so they stay there. So it's self-sabotage almost. So surprisingly, sometimes that answer would be no. And we need to find the emotion that's connected to that so we can help them move along and not stay in the zone. And I realized it's a defense mechanism. So for instance, weight gain. Sometimes the body is trying to protect us, and it's creating that weight gain. So for example, if there was an assault, the subconscious mind will logically set up this connection where it says, this was a painful experience we just went through. So in working to help, it creates an outer shell that's less attractive and allows more weight, prohibiting the chance of another assault. It's amazing how the human body works. So this may be one reason why so much rebounding in dieting and in clearing emotion from the heart wall. Sometimes we can find that underlying imbalance in another organ as well. So getting to the root imbalance. Heavy metal toxicity can cause pathogens. Trapped emotions can also facilitate pathogens getting into the body because they lower the immune system. And lastly, the heart wall. It will lower the immune system dramatically. So let's talk about the heart wall. This is the seat of the subconscious mind, seat of our creativity and love, the core of our being. So oftentimes it's challenging for it to freely communicate with all the other organs in the body simply because the messages being sent are going through all those layers and layers of negative emotion. So when we remove enough layers and imbalances, an old injury or hurt anywhere in the body may surface. An old injury can affect the body in other locations simply because it never healed properly and it's still there buried. Same thing with the tuning forks. We're working in layers. That's why it eventually comes to the surface and we remove it. We bring in coherence. That's what we're doing here, bringing in coherence. So in peeling back these layers, it's very similar to the biofield tuning with tuning forks. So suddenly there's an old injury or hurt and it's ready to be released. So magnets. Let's talk about magnets for a minute. We use magnets in this work. We roll the magnets in a downward motion, connecting the spirit to the physical body. So down this way, okay? Holding a magnet, we're just coming down. And then we roll the magnet in an upward motion to connect the physical body to spirit. So it's a two-way communication. And very often there are bones that are misaligned that you can find will come back into alignment. It's amazing. Dizziness. Dizziness can have a lot of different underlying causes. Misalignments in the body, the upper body part of our physical body, infection, the spine is not uncommon. Even after several sessions, like with tuning forks, with the emotion code, there are also still some residual energy. And again, like the tuning forks, we're working with layers, some quite large and dense. So what I'm going to point out is anything can cause anything. And that's literally true. So it's important not to get caught up in ways of thinking. So for example, thinking something has to come from a certain cause. No, it doesn't. We may simply find that in some cases, a chiropractic adjustment is needed, and that's enough. Sometimes it isn't. There's far more than that, but sometimes it is just that. We can also correct some of these imbalances with rolling the magnet up the spine or using a tuning fork. My point is to think outside of that box that we've been placed in. Think outside the box. Aspartame helps create MS symptoms. Symptoms. Simply by drinking anything that has aspartame in it. So many people have been diagnosed with MS simply because they won't give up drinking soda. If someone is manifesting disease, could be anything. Could be MS, Parkinson's, cancer. 80% of the diseases are trapped emotions. 80%. The other 20% we can locate more deeply with the body code. So in this work, there are two sets of certifications to learn. The emotion code and the body code. Wonderful work. And that is the beauty of using both. So can we cure everything? No. But can we help the majority of the people in most cases? Yes. We're not treating diseases. We're trying to find the underlying, we're going under that. We're trying to find the underlying imbalance that's leading and creating these symptoms. Miasm, let's go into that. Miasm is a distortion of the energy field that was passed down from ancestry. What we find is it's not so much the disease that's passed down, but the distortion that's occurred in the energy field itself in the body. Emotional abuse or sexual abuse. The emotion of lust always shows up in young children about between the ages of 2 and 3, but it's almost never the abused person, meaning it's almost never their trapped emotion. It's pretty much always the trapped emotion they absorbed from the abuser. Remember I was telling you earlier, under the age of 6, we absorb everything. So they absorb from the abuser. Try to say that 3 times fast. Abuser. Lastly, I'm going to leave you with this wonderful story. When I read this story from him, I just was so impressed and moved. The founder, Dr. Bradley Nelson, and this is on parasites. And these are very common in people. So this particular story is about a young woman that came to him. She was about 21 years old, and at about 18, she had gone to the Philippines. She had been working in a very primitive condition and in an orphanage, had a dirt floor, and became very, very ill. They flew her back to the States and started seeing all these doctors trying to figure out what was wrong with her. And nobody could figure it out. Her body was racked with pain, was having convulsions all the time. She had total amnesia, complete and utter total amnesia. Couldn't remember anything from her life and anything that even happened 5 minutes previous. It was really bizarre. They'd never seen anything like this. All testing just came back negative. Her doctors had diagnosed her as dying and gave her about 4 months to live. It was obvious to them that her body was deteriorating rapidly. Her parents brought her to see Dr. Bradley Nelson, where he did a body code evaluation and immediately found out she had 8 different kinds of parasites in her body that she had picked up in the Philippines. So when we go to the tropics, these parasites can be really severe, especially if you're drinking water there. Always try to be careful not to do that. So in using the body code, he worked with 4 different supplements and was able to figure out which supplement she needed and when. She was the worst case he'd ever seen. He saw her 1 year to the day almost. And in that year-long battle, she would have a breakout of parasites and could have to switch. He would actually have to switch her formulas and give her something else. Finally, at the end of the year, she was finally well. Her amnesia went completely away. Her mind came back. Her convulsions stopped. The pain and fatigue all went away. And as soon as she was finally well enough, she would start to go out in town, out and about, and people actually thought she had died simply from not seeing her for 4 years. She went back to school and got an advanced degree in sign language. So, I found that story to be absolutely profound. So I hope you enjoyed this educational segment on the emotion code. This was part 1. We're going to do another segment next month. So as we close part 1 of this series on the emotion code, if you're interested in this work and more, you can contact me at energy4522@gmail.com or my website, energyworkstudio.com, 1 S between work and studio. Thanks everyone for tuning in. See you next month for part 2. Until then, stay well, stay tuned. Bye for now.